Good morning, everybody. It's Friday morning. Is it? Yeah, it's Friday morning. I slept like a stone last night. And just a quick message to say, there's no vlog tonight because I'm going out tonight. So I was just going to put up a post saying, no vlog, see you next time. But then I remembered I filmed a QA video in Ireland because I got loads of questions. And then I forgot all about it. So when I was editing the vlog last night, I was like, what's that folder for? It's a QA video. So enjoy the video, and I hope it answers some of your questions. I really appreciate you watching the vlogs and supporting the channel. I gotta get to work, but I'll see you next time. Hi there. So I got a lot of new people watching the channel. I think there's about 30 plus people now. And that's all I'm thinking about. I could handle 20, just about handle 30. So in my head, I'm talking to 30 people. Which is also a very hard word for a man from Dublin to say. 30. Not 30, 30. Anyway, I thought I'd answer some questions because I've been getting lots of them. So to cover the basics, questions that I get all the time. How long have you lived in France? How did you meet Dan? And how did you end up working at the chateau? So I lived in France about 6 years, I want to say. Could be more. And I met Dan when I first arrived. And Dan asked me to do some work with him in Lalande, Stephanie's place. And then after that, we kept in touch. And I did another little bit of work for him. And then he asked me this year to come and help him fix up this old chateau he found. So I said yes. And I started in the chateau, I want to say May time. I'm really bad with dates. A few months ago. And it's been going great. People also want to know where I met Nick. So me and Dan and Nick met. I think the first time we all met at the same time was in Chateau Lalande, in Stephanie's place. I think Nick was cutting down some trees at the time, and me and Dan were, I think, clearing the moat, if I remember correctly. So that's where the three of us worked together for the first time. That was a couple of years ago now. So, some more questions. What's the funniest thing to have happened to you in France because of culture or language misunderstanding? I don't know if I told you this already, but for a long time, I was calling a chainsaw a tronçonneuse. Tronçonneuse. Chainsaw. That's the French word. It's not the French word. It turns out the French word for chainsaw is tronçonneuse. And it was only after several months that my friend Joe turned around to me and said, why do you keep calling it a tronçonneuse? It's not called that at all. It's called a tronçonneuse. And I thought, well, Joe, you've heard me say that word multiple times to many different people and you never corrected me once. So thank you very much for that, Joe. It's quite funny though. Is your independence important to you? You seem very happily solo and free-spirited, but ready to help others along the way. Is there a philosophy you follow? Yeah, I really like my independence and I really like my solo adventures. In terms of philosophy, I don't really have one. My general outlook on life is try to be nice to people and give everyone a chance. That seems to have worked out so far. I did try and come up with a motivational phrase for myself when I was feeling a bit like and procrastinating and stuff like that, and I tried coming up with like cool original ones just for me, like, and at the end of the day I just settled on just do it. You know, when you come home and the car's full of tools and your bike gear's in the back and it's all wet and you're like, oh, I'll leave it till tomorrow. Now I try to just remember, just do it, Brian, just do it. And it seems to stand to me because every time I say to myself, just do it, Brian, it usually only takes 5 or 10 minutes to do whatever the thing was. And then I feel way better when I've done it. So yeah, that works for me. Seems you have plenty of friends where you are. Are they mainly British expats or do you have a good mix of local friends as well? No, I've a fair mix. There's not a huge amount of English people living around where we are. Most of my friends are French. I got Dan and Nick. And then I have some other Irish friends kicking about the place as well. I have some British friends too, but not all British friends. Do you and Nick get paid for the work you do at the chateau? Yeah, Dan lets us drink all the coffee we can. What's your favourite YouTube channel? There's one about this mad fella who's bought a ruin of an old chateau in the middle of rural France. And him and these two idiots, he's convinced to come and help him, spend their days bolting bits of timber to the roof. It's like a comedy there sometimes. That's my favourite channel. Do you have space to grow any of your own fruit and veg? I do. I have a polytunnel, kind of. It's a polytunnel without the poly bit because the plastic blew away in a storm. I need to get that replaced actually. But I did have this year tomatoes and cucumbers and obviously potatoes. So that was quite good. It's quite tasty actually as well. Do you get nervous working at heights on the chateau? Not really, no. I've always had a pretty good head for heights, and I've done a lot of climbing and rope rescue stuff in my past, so I'm never really nervous at heights. And Nick is there as well, and he always keeps us super safe. Being Irish, you remain a citizen of the Eurozone. Correct. Does that afford you residence rights anywhere in the EU? What changes, if anything, for UK citizens residing in the EU after Brexit? So, yeah, I'm Irish and still an EU citizen, so I have the right to work and live anywhere in the European Union. I don't need any special visa or permit or anything like that. UK citizens coming to the EU now, there's different things for whatever you want to do. So there's like holiday visas, and I think you can get a working visa, and then there might be a residency permit you need to get. I'm not too sure. I do know, like, if you want to start a business in France and you're from the UK, you need to provide like a business plan, whereas before I think you didn't have to do that. And then obviously the one thing that is uniform for me, all French citizens and British citizens coming to the UK, coming to France, is that you need to have healthcare. So sometimes that's provided through where you're working, and sometimes you can get your own healthcare and it tops up the state-funded healthcare, if that makes sense. That doesn't make sense. You need your own private healthcare. No, you don't need your own private healthcare. You need healthcare. Forget about the healthcare thing. I don't know what is healthcare like. It's great. Have you lived in the same place in France, or have you moved about? No, now I live in the same place in France. Since I moved over to live here permanently, I now live in the same place. Before, I worked in France quite a lot, and I lived in different places. So I lived down in the Alps for a while. That was quite nice. And that's it really. I just lived in the Alps. Yeah. How long does it take to drive to Ireland? Well, I flew this time because I'm still in Ireland, but normally it takes about, I think it's about 8 or 9 hours from where we are, the cruise. That's our county, our department. And it takes about 8 or 9 hours to drive to Cherbourg. And then I think the ferry to Dublin is about 14 hours. So, yeah. Could you mention the villages and towns you visit by name? Yeah, I'm really bad at that. Sorry about that one. I will try and get better at saying, this town is called blah, blah, blah. I'll try and work on that one. What part of Ireland are you from? And do you speak Gaelic? Well, I'm from Dublin, which is in Leinster, which is on the east coast. And I do speak a little bit of Irish. I really wished I spoke more Irish, because we all get taught Irish in school, but I don't speak a huge amount of Irish. I'd love to speak more Irish because it's a real mystical, magical, very romantic language. If you say something in Irish in the right tone of voice, you can make it sound very romantic. Is knowing a little bit of French required in establishing residency? Not for me. I don't need to pass any French exams, but like I said, I think if you're from the UK or any other third nation that's not on the EU, you do need to have a certain level of French in order to get a residency visa, I think. What's your favourite thing you love about living in France? Absolutely the lifestyle. It just suits me. You can't have a French lifestyle anywhere else in the world, and you can't have an Irish lifestyle in France, if that makes sense. Will you switch to 4K? 4K is a different way of filming videos, and normally I film in 1080p. I don't know what that means, it's just what the lads told me to put the settings on the camera to. This is in 4K, and I think the last vlog was in 4K. So, I don't know, we'll try it, and if people like it, I'll continue filming in 4K. When you first came to France, was accommodation hard to find? No, but I did a lot of research before I came to France. So I roughly knew where I wanted to be in France, and I visited a load of times, and I went and I met with local estate agents, and I gave them like a list of what I was looking for in a home, and then they contacted me semi-regularly saying, oh, this house here kind of fits your needs, what do you think? So that was quite useful for me, rather than just going on like a general estate agency website and looking at what stock they have. It's better to talk to the local agents directly, and then they know to keep an eye out for something that suits you. Is it freaky driving on the opposite side of the road? Nah, you get used to it. It's harder if you're flying in, I think. If you're flying from Ireland, you get off the plane, you get into a rental car and you hit the motorway. I think it's a bit harder than if you drive onto a boat, drive off the boat, because when you do that, you're automatically just on the right side of the road and in your own car as well. So I think it's easier if you get a ferry to the country. Have you been to Australia? No, I haven't been to Australia. How do you heat your house? I have a log burner which heats the whole house. It's really cool. And I also have electric radiators in each room, but I rarely use them because if I light the fire, which is in the center of my house, it heats the whole place really quickly. And also I did spend a lot of time insulating my house really well, which helps massively. Are you a Dublin Northsider or Southsider? Unfortunately, I'm a Southsider. Sorry. Is France your forever home? Yes, 'tis. Have you done all the repairs work to your house yourself? Yeah, pretty much. I did get in some people to help with some bigger projects, but most of it was done myself. Yeah. Will your vlog eventually take on a focus, or do you plan to continue to do random snippets of your daily life? I mean, it's just videos about what I get up to. I hadn't really thought that far ahead. I think next year what I'd like to do, if I get a chance, is travel a bit more around France and see places I haven't been. But that's for me. But now I'm vlogging, I'll probably just vlog those as well, but I'm not doing it specifically to vlog, if that makes sense. It's just something I'm doing anyway. Where do you get your hilarious sense of humour from? Definitely my mother. And someone asks, if they have white goods in the UK, can they use them in France, or do you have to change the plug? So that's like fridges, washing machines, dishwashers, stuff like that. They do sell all those things in France. But yeah, I mean, if you come over and you're on a budget and you want to bring your own stuff, of course, just change the plugs and away you go. I'm not an electrician, so don't take my word on that. But yeah. What equipment do you use for your editing software? So I use an editing program called CapCut, and there's a free version, and then you can pay, I think it's like a tenner a month for the pro version. So because this is the first time I'm doing anything like this, I thought, well, I'll give that a lash and see if it works for me. And for me, because I'm not super techie, YouTubey, video edity person, it works really well for me. It's quite user friendly. And then I think I've just started paying the tenner a month because there's some features you can use on the pro version that you can't use on the free version. And I think it's well worth the tenner for me anyway. It sounds like you've had an interesting and adventurous life. Will you consider writing your memoirs? What this is, kind of the idea in my head for the vlog was it would be a daily video diary for me. I've done them before. For years I did little video clips just for me on old phones and things like that. But this vlog is, when I was thinking about doing it, I thought to myself, well, yeah, it'll be handy for me to look back on in a few years to see what I was up to. So, yeah. Rural France looks lovely, but I fear that it might be just as boring as here in rural Ireland. I don't know. I mean, like, I know where we are. We all live in an apartment called The Cruise. And I don't know about all of France, but in The Cruise, there's loads of stuff to do if you're kind of outdoorsy. So there's loads of waymarked trails for horses and bikes. I think there's even waymarked trails for like off-road bikes, you know, like you can swim in all the lakes, you can climb all the hills. The right to roam, the access in France is a bit better than it is in Ireland. But again, it's what you make of it really, you know. How long have you been mountain biking? Since I was about 12, I'd say. Do you follow any sporting teams? Not really. I like watching the UCI Downhill Championship, the mountain biking, and any of the Red Bull mountain bike events I tend to watch, like the Rampage and the Hardline and stuff like that. Favourite kind of cheese? There's too many. I don't like really soft blue cheeses. I like the chunkier ones a bit more. How many countries have you visited? Lots. Price of a cup of coffee. So in France, if you go into anywhere in France and ask for a coffee, they'll give you an espresso. You can have, so that's a coffee. You can have a long coffee, which is like a Americano, probably, I don't know. or you can have a coffee with cream, or you can have a little coffee with cream. And a little coffee espresso is about 120 normally where we are, but never more than like £3 for whatever size coffee you want. When you go out for a meal, do you eat traditional French food like escargot? I will make a confession. I have never eaten escargot, snails. Nah, I'm okay. I can live in France happily without eating a snail. I'm not big on snails. Maybe they're lovely, I don't know. And I suppose if someone was to present a plate of them to me, I'd give it a go. But I don't sit down in a restaurant and go, I think I'll have the escargots tonight. So, thank you very much for watching the Q&A. I hope it answered some of the questions you have. If I get a flurry of more questions, now that we've a few new people watching, I'll do another one in a while. But I hope you have a lovely weekend. Be kind to people. And I'll see you next time.